the last mow of the year. The weather has really turned. It's freezing at night. You got to get this sucker put away for winter. So our Luba finished mowing the backyard. And I got to say, on a side note, I'm very proud of how this turned out. Last year, I killed all of this off because I had disease problems with the lawn. It was a mix of fescue, ryegrass, and bluegrass. And decided to start over completely with 100% bluegrass mix. And it was looking very rough in spring, but now you can see it's completely filled in. I don't have any bare spots. Well, I do have one bare spot, but I removed this play set about a month ago. And it's filling in on its own with the bluegrass. It creeps in nicely. So I haven't seeded this, done anything with it, and I think by middle of next year, for sure, this will be completely filled in and gone. So that's a huge side benefit of having bluegrass. The other thing is it just looks good and is a lot more resistant to disease. I think there are better species of those mixed grasses. I probably had low end that wasn't very disease resistant. There's probably some very good ryegrasses that can withstand better than what I had. But anyway, happy with how this is turning out. So I want to get the charging station and the RTK antenna down before we get these cold nights. That's one of the things they recommend in climate like this, not leave those outside during winter. I've already got the bot inside my heated garage, so I need to clean that up and do some maintenance on that before I put it away for winter. The main thing, obviously, bringing it inside that we're avoiding is freezing. And freezing on its own normally isn't that bad of a thing, except if there's water in it. Liquid water is actually more dense than solid water, ice. It's one of the few things in nature that does that, and it has a tendency to break things in that process. It's the hydrogen bonds basically space the molecules out further in the solid state versus the liquid state. Pretty interesting stuff. One of the reasons ice floats. If it didn't float, we wouldn't have any fish in most of the lakes around here. So side note, it's kind of a neat coincidence. But anyway, let's get the RTK antenna off and the charging station inside. That was pretty straightforward. I just have the 4 fasters holding it to the fascia up top. The one thing, there's a connector here on the wire. I could have left the power supply in place, but my fingers are kind of cold and this connector isn't the best, so I wasn't able to get it apart. So I just punted on that, decided instead of breaking it, I'll just take the whole thing together. So in my younger days, I probably would have tried longer and broke it, but easy enough. I didn't have this thing. I just kind of tucked it in the trim of the siding and around the door to hold it in place. So I'll just bring the whole thing in. Probably good for the power supply to get out of the cold anyway. I ran out of daylight yesterday, and it's even colder today. Reinforces the fact that lawn care is done. I've got the plastic Allen key that came with the Luba, taking out these plastic ground screws. Take the power supply, get this thing inside, clean it up, and that's all there is to it. I'd worry about getting this back in the same exact spot, which shouldn't be too hard. These holes for the screws should probably survive over winter. But I'm gonna add an extension on that RTK antenna with an arm to get it away from the roof line, to improve the signal a little bit more. That will require me to remap everything. And even just taking that RTK antenna down and putting it back up, I probably won't get it exactly the same. I would say within 1/8 of an inch, so that probably wouldn't affect things much. But the entire map and location of the Luba is based on that RTK antenna. So anytime that's disturbed, there's a potential for the location of the bot to be off. All right, let's get this power supply. I did bury the wire under the rocks a little bit just to keep it in place over the summer. We'll go back here to the outlet. There's the power supply. Grab this. I'm going to disconnect the power supply from the back. just so I can wash this thing up. It got kind of muddy over the summer. It's kind of interesting. Winter is pretty tough here. It gets quite cold, but at the beginning of the season, kind of embrace it, ready for a change. Summer isn't very long here, but the days are very long, and you tend to really burn yourself out by just trying to cram as much in that limited time as possible. So normally about this time of year, I'm ready for a break and cool down a little bit, go to bed earlier. But that feeling doesn't last very long. By January, I'm ready for it to be over. Anyway, let's get this thing cleaned up. You see I'm working on getting the garage floor painted. It's also another good thing about this time of year is it's good to transition from outside projects to inside projects. You can hear the garage heater going in the background. That has been very nice for this climate. Heat your garage, it really extends the usability of a garage, and you can do projects like this when it's really not very nice to be outside. Got the Luba in just in time. First snow of the year, October 31st, Halloween. The reason it's so important to get this thing inside for winter is water does get in it. We can see some leaking out from this plate here after washing it. I just put it up here on its side so I can clean out the deck and service the blade so it's ready to go in spring. But when you do that, you start to see between this black part of the bottom and the white cover, it's not waterproof. So water gets in there, and if that is in there and freezes during winter, it probably creates some issues. So that's one of the reasons we got to get it inside. Even if I wasn't going to service this, it's a good idea to put it on the side. It seems like a good way to let that water drain out before we store it for the season. One of the things I've decided to do because it's the end of season is to take the cutting disc completely off. This is a polymer piece, so I can clean behind it better and service the blades. Very simple, just 3 socket head cap screws on the hub there, and then the whole piece comes off. The other thing I think I'm going to do without next year is this whole guard assembly. Obviously it's a catch point for a lot of material, debris. Not only in here where the cutting blade is, but obviously on top of it. I didn't even know that. So these again, 3 socket head cap screws in this bolt circle right here above the cutting blade. So if you take the cutting blade plate off, you can get access to that. And I believe what that is protecting here, if we take a look at this, there's some rubber bellows on this assembly. So this whole assembly motors up and down based on cut height. So that's what changes. So the majority of this piece, see how it's kind of recessed in there, those bellows fit in there, I suppose, to prevent sticks and things like that from cutting this. So I got to think about what we're going to do here. I like the look of this much better. Seems that's the way it was intended, but obviously they put this piece on for a reason. It's molded right in here, and what I think it is a guard for toes. If this were to run over your foot, you wouldn't get cut here. Based on operation and the ultrasonic sensors and the bumper, it seems quite unlikely that that would ever happen, but I suppose it's a possibility. The one negative to completely removing this bellows is also sealed with the compression of this flange onto there. So if we get rid of that completely, it's going to be loose there. So I don't really want that. But I feel like quality of cut and debris would build up a lot less, at least if this piece was off. So there's 2 socket head cap screws here, and then 2 rivets on the side here. And we can remove rivets, put those back. That's not a big deal. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, is take this metal piece off and run just with this piece. See how that goes. Removing rivets is a relatively straightforward job. You just have to drill out the center of it. So here we have an 1/8 inch drill bit. There we go. If we need to replace this, we'll have to get those rivets out. It's kind of captured in there. So we can put a screwdriver or pop it through. Let's do that. There, we're able to just push it through. Got the rivet out. So I'm gonna clean this up and just run with that. See how that goes. All right, we've got our guards off. Everything cleaned up. I still have to switch the blades. But just wanted to show, I mean, this is a massive difference. Basically, this area covered by this was cutting width that you didn't have. The grass would just come in here. This would lay it over and it would never get cut on this side. So effectively, now we should have grass cutting on this side also, and less grass laid over. That's one of the things I noticed in cut quality on this. We don't have any airflow or suction to lift the grass up. So you have to rely on its own strength. But when you've got something like this, I mean, there's some slots cut in it, but the grass isn't gonna stick back up through that. Basically, this was something that would come down with these and just that wide lay the grass down. So I'm excited to see the difference this makes next year. I'm very tempted to cut this off. The only reason we've got a lot of this architecture here is just to hold this. I've used the same set of cutting blades all season. I've got 1 cutting surface left on this blade. That one we can see some pretty significant wear on also. Took a nice chunk out of it, but overall these are pretty hard, much harder than a standard lawnmower blade. And you can also see the wear on this side. Rest easy over the winter, Luba. The first year of the robot mower has been 2 thumbs up, really good. You notice though, it's early November, I'm in my t-shirt. One of the limitations of the robot mower is this weather dependency. Now, as the years go by, maybe I'll cheat a little bit on those freezing temperatures with the RTK antenna and the charging station, the Luba itself. But because I need that other equipment to run the mower, I'm not real flexible based on weather. The grass is growing now, could use a cut. But after today, we're gonna go back down into the 40s and the grass is gonna stop growing and we'll be done for the year. But normally, if I had my riding lawnmower or a walk behind mower, I'd probably cut in this little warm spell, but it's not really practical with the robot mower. Once the nights started getting into freezing temperatures and you want to protect it from freezing, you could take the mower in and out and then leave the antenna out, I suppose, but you're risking that a little bit. But that's probably what I'll do in the future. Anyway, this lawn care season is done. But again, extremely happy with how my lawn renovation went. This bluegrass is really good. Thanks for watching. Adios. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this content. I will continually having updates. And if you want to see something extra, put it in the comments. Let me know. I want to see more of whatever you want.